Well, we have another leader from California who is here with us now. It's Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez. She is a tireless supporter of high-speed rail as well. She spoke at our recent conference in Washington, D.C. She represents California's 47th Congressional District, which includes the cities of Anaheim, Garden Grove, Santa Ana, and Fullerton in Orange County. She began her career in January 1997 and is currently serving her 8th term in the U.S. House of Representatives. And we're proud to have you again talk with us. And
good morning, all. That was a great presentation by Dan, so I hope you all understand that we're pretty excited about this project, and we do know that it will go forward. I want to begin by telling you that when I got out of MBA school, the first job that I had was working for the Orange County Transportation Commission. It was, at that time, 6 people planning the regional aspects of transportation for Orange County under the direction of Stan Oftley and a commission. It has since, of course, morphed into OCTA with thousands of people probably working for it. So I'm pretty excited about transportation. It's, as I said, where I first cut my teeth. And more importantly, I think I was one of the first MBAs who went into government. And so there were many things that I got to do, including once I left OCTA to become an investment banker and to work on the financing of many projects up and down the state of California, first in public finance with respect to large infrastructure projects. At one point, I know, for example, I had the Bechtel option for the high-speed rail between Anaheim and Las Vegas. And I was the one who had to say, every project has its time, and this project's time is not now. I also was hired by the CTC to take a look at the 73 toll road, the first toll road that was going to be built in California. And I also held that project up almost for about 5 years. Not because I wanted to, but because every project has its time. And the time was not right then. And 5 years later, they began, and we saved over $500 billion just in financing costs because we had waited to do the project right. And I use it almost every day in Orange County, and I'm very proud of it. So people always ask me, well, what about high-speed rail? And my answer to them is, the time is now. The time is now for a backbone project for California. Hello? Oh. The time is now for a backbone project for California, and I truly believe that it will be built. In fact, we have, many of us, been to many places around the world, not just because we wanted to take a look at high-speed rail, because it is a way to get around in so many countries these days. And I have to tell you that when we look at the fact that Iraq is planning and building a high-speed rail between Baghdad and Basra, why would we not build something up and down the length of California? I am a little biased as I represent my hometown of Anaheim, California. It has, of course, the happiest place on earth there. And it is a #1 destination place in California for tourism. And so I believe it should be on the line. I don't believe that it should be left off of a high-speed line. People know that. I don't believe it should be the terminus of the line, because I think there are a lot of things to happen down in San Diego and into the Mexican border, etc. So I'm a true believer in high speed, and I'm a true believer that the time is now. And having a finance background, I'll go toe-to-toe with any of my congressional colleagues about why this makes sense. I'm really thrilled that Dan is on board and has been able to refocus and regroup back to where we are. Now, you know, the other day, I was up in Santa Ynez, and I was driving along, and I recently got married, and my husband is from Amish country, Pennsylvania. And he said to me, You know, I think Pennsylvania is the most rural nation, one of the most rural states in our nation. He said, you know, we have so few people per square mile or what have you. And I started to laugh. I said, I bet you that we have less people per square mile in California than in Pennsylvania. And he said, no way. Of course, there's this thing called Google these days. And I proved to him that we are 2.5 times more rural by population than his Amish country. And he could not believe that. So it really comes to this whole idea that people believe that all we want to do in California is connect the cities. And that's not true. I mean, we have to be cognizant of the fact that there is a lot of rural America in California and how we get this done. So we have to have the right route. Yes, we have to put up with things like people think they're going to make a killing because they own the acres that we want to go through. I mean, that's a fact of life in any big project that is built. I would say to Governor Brown when he said this is going to take a lot of lifting, what do you think your father had to do when he envisioned the UC system? Back then, it was a lot of lifting, and look how well California has done because of that university system. This is the same type of project for California. The same type of project for our citizenry, whether you live in a city or whether you live in the rural area. Whether you're rich or whether you're of lower economic means. Because when you put people on this train that will be built, it will do several things. It will open up capacity in our air flight. There's no more room in the air. I mean, we are having discussions about what lanes there really are, who really controls that, what we can do. And as someone who 30 years learned to fly out of the #1 general aviation airport in our nation, Orange County, I will tell you, it is congested up there, it is difficult up there, and it costs a lot of money to put things up in the air and move them around. And we just don't have that per capita dollar anymore. So we need to do something to alleviate the problems we have in our airspace. And this fast train will do that. The second thing is there are these highways. I mean, yesterday I was stuck on the 405 because there was just construction going on. Just construction. And I managed to do what would normally take 35 minutes to get to Orange County. Took me 2 hours and 12 minutes. And of course, I missed receiving my award at the dinner because the dinner was over by the time I got there. So this happens over and over and over again for those metropolitan areas where people are trying to move. So when we get people onto this train, we will loosen up capacity. Well, people say, well, you know, you don't take a high-speed train from one end of Los Angeles to the other to go to work. No, you don't. But what happens is we estimate there's about 13% of the people in cars that are actually tourist-type people. Those are tourist-driven trips, generated trips. And when we get those people onto the backbone of the high-speed rail, the connecting BART and Metro, and, well, in Orange County it would probably be a taxi, quite frankly. We get them off of the street and we open up capacity. I happen to have in Orange County the widest, I believe the widest freeway interchange in the nation. If you've gone to the El Toro Y, you will see that it's like 13 lanes wide or something like that. I am told you can see it from the moon. I cannot make it wider. It's very difficult to cross 7 lanes in the matter of half a minute to get to where you need to go. There are too many accidents that can happen when you get things wider. So for the capacity of the system of moving people, it's incredibly important. And the other issue that Dan brought up is the capacity of moving freight in our nation. You know, when we controlled the House, we Democrats, I was the queen of maritime. So I know my ports like nobody else, especially Long Beach, Los Angeles, for example, where almost half of everything that comes into our nation comes through those ports. And again, capacity on our existing rail system so that, in fact, we can bring the bread out of the Central Valley where we grow it for most of the nation and other places in the world. And capacity because it will allow more trucks to use those highways. If, again, 13% of our people are moved off of the existing system. So from a people and a freight capacity, from an air system capacity, this system is incredibly important. People say to me all the time, and realize where I represent. I represent Orange County. People, you know, I believe it's the 6th wealthiest county in the nation. But it also has the working class. When you go down to Anaheim and you stay at a hotel, people are washing the dishes you eat off, they're placing the food in front of you, they're making the beds that you sleep in. Believe it or not, these are $10 an hour jobs. So I represent a lot of working class. So when people say to me, this is just an elitist system, it's not just an elitist system. I mean, with computers now, especially when we get to supercomputer, which will happen in the not too distant future, but with computers today, we can yield price. Have you ever wondered why some days you pay $38 for the flight up to San Francisco and some days you pay $497 for the same seat? Or have you ever wondered who's sitting next to you on the plane? And you know you've had to pay $400, but this person probably got like the $59 seat? I mean, we can do that. The airlines do it today. We don't like it if we're on the receiving end of the $500 ticket. But if you plan well enough in advance, you can probably snag a pretty inexpensive seat. And the same thing can happen on our rail system. So I'm truly excited. Now I want to talk just a little bit about what Dan said with respect to the federal issues. Look, two things are going on in Washington, D.C. with respect to the California high speed. The first is that we are in an election year. It's heating up. We've got about 6 months to go to this election. And honestly, the other side, for everybody's purpose here, I am from Orange County, but I am a Democrat. The other side, the Republicans, have decided that in any way that they can dent President Obama, they will. So President Obama made this one of his high-level visual projects, right? He stood up and he said, this is important to me. And for this reason, I believe, we saw the attacks that we have seen this past year. I'm glad we have Dan on because now we're able to go back, redo a plan, show people how it's going. By the way, Chairman Micah wants to see this project built. Chairman Micah wants to see this project built. So those of us who want to see the project built are working in a very bipartisan manner to get this done because we believe it's important. Now, why would I tell you it's political? Because I know there's some Republicans in here, and you're probably thinking, Loretta, you're getting too political for us. No. Let's examine the facts, because the facts don't lie. You know, we weren't the only people who received funding in the ARA to work towards a high-speed rail project. There were other states. And those Republican governors slapped it back, which was great. I said, give it to me. And we did get it redirected to us. So these political issues going on are just taken away from the fact that we have to move forward and get this project done. There's a real concern because As Dan suggested, and Secretary LaHood, a Republican, will tell you, we've got to make sure this moves forward this year. Because what we have seen is when there's any expiration or any inability to move forward a project, the Republicans have pulled back that money. They've actually already gone into ARA and taken money and pushed it aside. You have only to look at the housing programs we had, which, quite honestly, were working for some people, very few people, but not a lot of people. And so there was the evidence to say, let's pull it back. And they did. And so we have the same problem with these ARA funds, is that we need to show real progress to get this project done. So I hope that the state legislature will do the right thing and get this obligated and get this moved. I talked about politics, and it seems, I don't want you to think that I'm just bashing Republicans on that, because I can bash Democrats just as easily. Okay? This project was to be slated first and foremost to start from Anaheim to Los Angeles. We would have had it built by now if it had been up to me. But what happened? The unemployment rate in the Fresno Central Valley area was so high that politics, quite frankly, were played by the administration, and they announced they wanted to build the first part in those counties, which was a problem because those counties didn't really know what they wanted, and they did feel like it was being rammed down their throat. And where would it go once you built it, if that's the section you built with these funds that you were getting? And so I think that was a bad decision. I think it was political, I have to tell you that. Bad decision. It's been rectified. We're going back. We're taking a look. We will build where we need to build and where it makes sense to build. So, the last piece I want to talk to you about, because I alluded to the fact that everybody wants to take their cut. Don't move in my neighborhood, go around my neighborhood, go through my neighborhood, but pay me, $800,000 for my $100,000 home. Don't think I haven't seen this before. I have. I told you I did public financing for a long time. Economic development. Aside from the fact that I believe we should build it, and aside from the fact that I believe this project's time is now, and once we can get all the kinks out of what's going to cost to get you on board and start moving this through, and when we raise the money to move it forward, we've got some seed money, we need more. Aside from all of that is this whole issue of economic development. And I'm just not talking about the jobs that this will create to build it, because certainly there will be jobs. In Orange County alone, my Orange County Business Council said that there would be 50,000 jobs in the Orange County area associated with this over the next 10 years. I think that's great. But I think the jobs after the fact, the ability to do transit-oriented development, the ability to put in cogs into the hub system and to move things and to build development, especially now that we see that redevelopment for a lot of these cities may have gone away. So I think the economic development opportunities is where we go and we get these cities to come in along the line. And that's why I'm very pleased that we have had that change in the High-Speed Rail Authority and that we can do this. So I'm absolutely and completely a cheerleader for this project. And I don't say that because I don't know what the numbers look like. I know what the numbers look like, and I know how difficult it is to build these projects. It is very, very difficult to have the vision to do so. But at least in Washington, D.C., we have turned this around, and we have a very bipartisan group working to ensure that we build our first high-speed rail in the United States here in California. So for those of you who are looking for work, looking for contracts, my hope is that you would see that within the next year, because we're really gung-ho for it. And I just want to thank you And keep at it. These projects are never, ever easy. But there are a lot of cities along the way who are thrilled to get this project underway, and Anaheim is one of those. Thank you.